Get all my necessaries out, my Vicks, cough drops, my water, a little vodka. And I'll apologize now for the croaky voice. Our lovely pollen has just infused my body completely. And so I will apologize for any coughing I do. I don't think I'm contagious. I don't think you can catch pollen. I think you have to just get it outside. But anyway, if I go into a coughing fit, just forgive me, please. I'll take a sip of water and I'll suck on my tablets. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see one other old family of Southport here. And the Laughlins, I went to school with Mary Ann Laughlin, so we're part of the old Southport clan. I'm actually standing in my grandparents', I think I'd be in their backyard right now. Their house was right here. They owned the property all the way to the Indian Trail tree and all the way down to Bay Street and all the way to the corner this way. And on the corner was a sawmill. So we're sitting in the Cranmer backyard. I'll start off a little bit of heritage that led me into the arts. This town, as I found out through life, like a lot of towns, the old folks sat around and told stories. They told stories about their families. They all sang. They all usually played an instrument. My grandmother, who lived here, had 8 children. They all played either a violin or the piano. My Aunt Mary Mintz was a concert pianist. Music was a part of everyone's life. And then they had the porches that they'd go out in the evening and catch the breeze and tell stories. They'd tell stories about their families. I knew all about my grandparents. I knew about their parents, the stories that they told, the songs that they sang. All of that led me to appreciate and want more. My mother and dad encouraged anything the town put on little shows. They would have tacky parties, and they would have men would dress up. Daddy and Dan Harrelson would dress up as women, and they'd have beauty contests. And there was always something going on that was entertaining. We entertained ourselves. We didn't look at this. We entertained ourselves. And during high school, I decided that I wanted to be a Hollywood movie star, and that was going to be it. And so I started performing, and I was encouraged. Mrs. Benning, a teacher that I had, she taught Shakespeare. Now, can you imagine Shakespeare with the country folk around here, the boys in the class? But what she did, she made us read it and take parts. And the guys got into it, you know, when she would explain what the words meant. And so we acted out. We read the poems out loud. And I decided to go away to summer stock when I was in high school. Spent the summers up in Brevard at the Parkway Playhouse. My sister went to Jacob Spiller, a dance studio, and my daddy put in the window of the drugstore that his daughters were suffering from hoof and mouth disease. But anyway, that led me on to looking up in the Webster's Collegiate Dictionary the best drama schools. And I'd got it down to Miami of Ohio and LSU. And I decided that I was a Southerner and I couldn't take the cold, so I would go to LSU. And I got on a train by myself and went to LSU and had the great fortune of having great guys and girls to follow in their footsteps. I don't know how many of you know, but there was a girl there that graduated. She ended up marrying this guy that he sold, I think it was some kind of salad dressing. I think his name was Paul Newman. Anyway, Joanne Woodward was one of our thespians there at LSU, who went on and ended up, as you well know, carrying it on. I ended up carrying on 4 children. But I loved it, every minute of it, and participated. And in 1980, we came back to Southport. We retired and came back. And one night in 81, there was Tricia Foy and myself and I can't remember the other girl, Gloria Yount. And we decided to go to Bonnets. I don't know if any of y'all remember Bonnets. Was a nice little bar downtown, had food, Mexican food, and a bar. And we talked about wanting to have a theater in Southport. There was no formal theater, and we talked and drank and talked. And went home, and the next morning I got a call from Gloria, and she said, "We're so glad that you're going to be our director." I'm not sure to this day about that. I kind of think they might have ganged up on me. But anyway, I said, okay. And that started off the Brunswick Players. And we decided that we would put on a musical, because a musical is a cast of thousands and children. And we knew that children, each child was good for at least 4 tickets. So you always encouraged children. And we decided on Brigadoon, because that was the last musical I was in. Up in the mountains, we did a performance of Brigadoon, and I still remembered most of it. So that's what we did, and we had to have a place to perform. So the Caswell Baptist Assembly let us use their stage, and we had no costume places, no shops. We just used people's garages, and they would make the sets. We'd go in people's homes and look at the furniture and decide which chair we wanted and which sofa we needed, and just involve the whole community in this big project of Brigadoon. And that was our very first performance at the Baptist Assembly. It went well. One of the sets in the back was about to fall down, but my little son-in-law, who wasn't my son-in-law at that time, volunteered to stand through the whole performance and hold the set up. And he didn't get paid either. But it was a success. And we realized that we could do it by using every asset in the community. and people pitched in. They volunteered their garages. They volunteered their porches. Anything we needed, we called on. I told my mother to make a list of her friends and start promoting tickets to things. We decided we would formally be the Brunswick Players. And we made a pact that we would do one musical a year, one straight performance, 3-act performance, and one different thing, like a one-woman show or a series of radio programs, different things, but three different performances a year. And all the musicals were over at Hatch Auditorium. And we would do a move-in on Friday night and then perform Saturday dress rehearsal and the Sunday performance. And we did that for several years, having many strange things happening. We were getting ready to do the show Carnival, and we were going across the bridge with the truck loaded with the flats for the set, and the wind caught them, and they ended up in the inland waterway, and we drove an empty truck into Castle. But amazingly, the guys went back. They drug them out of the water, and we hosed them off and put them up, and it worked. It worked. And we had all kinds of interesting participants. We had to be very careful what we did. We couldn't perform Hair over at the Assembly. I don't know how many of you know that musical, but there were things that we couldn't do and shouldn't do over there. And I got a message one day when we were in dress rehearsal that I needed to go check the dressing rooms. And some of our leading ladies had their little libation with them, and we're sitting in the dressing room having a little cocktail before performance. And with my one of the performances, my children, and that you never knew with kids what was going to happen. My children were back playing poker between sets. It was always something interesting, and we succeeded. The opening of Carnival, a local lawyer came down the aisle on a unicycle. Bill Fairley, I don't know if you know Bill Fairley, he rides a unicycle, or did. And so he opened up the session of Carnival. We put on HMS Pinafore. We did many things, and finally, Brunswick Community College had abandoned the gym on Lord Street, and we moved into that, our own place for the first time. We had played in the ILA Hall. We had played in the city building downtown, the old courthouse. We had played in churches. We did Amal and the Night Riders. We decided then to be a nonprofit, and we had to change the name, so we sat around in the Lord Street gym one day, and that's when Brunswick Little Theatre arrived. So the Players turned into the Brunswick Little Theatres, and we grew, and we put chairs, and we put a light booth. We actually had lights, and we had a curtain to pull, and everything went along just the way it's supposed to. We had our leading lady bend over, and her dress ripped right down the back. But staple guns and duct tape are the saviors behind the stage. We stapled her right back into that dress and pushed her out on the stage. And we had some great shows over in the Centennial Center. And it grew from there, and I was with them, directed over 30 plays, and that's about it. Any questions?
Did your children follow into?
They were so embarrassed. I embarrassed my children all the time. They supported me, though. I have a son who he acted out all the time. He decided to rent. We lived 2 blocks from a major hotel in downtown Baton Rouge, and he rented a tuxedo, and he bought himself a patch that said, "Hello, I am." And he would go down every weekend because they would have conventions, and he enjoyed eating and meeting all the people. And he performed all of his life, but never on stage.
I remember your handsome Louisiana husband, Barry.
Oh, yes, thank you. I couldn't have done it without him.
Oh.
He was not the least bit interested in it. He loved it, but he didn't like, he said, "I don't like seeing backstage all the mechanics of it. I like," he was a movie buff. He didn't want to see the makings of it, but he was very supportive. And also added 2 things for me. He had a real vision. Being an architect, he would help me with sets and all. So.
And he had the best name, Barry Callari.
Yeah. And our firstborn son, he said, "I do not want to name him Barry because I was teased all the time because it rhymed, Barry Callari." So he chose Carrie. So I have a Carrie Callari, a Keith Callari, a Kim Callari, and a Karen Callari. And my first Christmas card that I had the 3 children, I put "Love from the KKK." And I thought I better change that, so I had another child.
Stuart?
Yes.
When did you have to move from the gym? Because the gym finally sort of fell apart.
The fellow, I don't remember the exact date, but that was my final. I never could participate when it went out to the road, but physically participate, but I'm not sure what year that was.
After 96, because I did a couple of plays there.
We did some plays in the Amuse You. And yeah. In fact, we did, that's where we did the Pirates of Penzance. Yeah.
What year did you make the nonprofit?
We were in the gym at the time. I don't remember.
Okay. Maybe late 90s.
Yeah. But it was an experience. And group participation, folks, you know, that is so lost now. Children don't even know who their grandparents are.
Yeah.
There's no storytellers. My grandparents were storytellers, and they had this house that was here had a big sleeping porch upstairs, screened in, and a big wraparound porch with the wisteria vines covering it. And the adults would go out in the evening and sit there, and we would lay up in the cots on the sleeping porch and listen to them talking about all the things that they had done, the places they had gone. They were very spiritual people that believed in things that people don't talk about today. They firmly believed in the afterlife and in ghosts and things, and it was just fascinating to lay there and hear the drone of the bees droning and the wisteria smell coming up and them talking and singing. And my grandfather could recite poetry. He would sit there and say poetry, and I'm sure that other families did the same thing. There were no bad singers. There were just hurt ears.
Liz just did a great article on the Indian Trail tree, and that was in your...
Grandma, yes.
I guess you did something on that tree.
Oh, yeah.
Under it and all that.
There's buried treasure under it. Yes, I snuck in my grandmother's room and took some of her jewelry and put it in my granddaddy's cigar box and buried it in the yard. And it's there still. I was scared to tell. I never told, but it's out there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Does anybody know what's going on with up the arts or whatever it's called?
For the old courthouse.
Not to my knowledge, but folks, pray for it, because that courthouse is so full of grand memories. We did a lot of shows there. The ladies in town used to put on a performance of Hee Haw, and just, you remember that? And we did a lot of performances in there, but a lot of trials were held in there. My grandfather was the youngest mayor ever elected in Southport. He had to wait to turn 21 before he could serve. He was elected before he was 21.
What was his name?
Ed Cranmer. That was the one who had this property, Ed Cranmer. And their house... Judge, yes. He was a Superior Court judge in North Carolina. Interesting stories, interesting in the courthouse. He was holding court one day, and Aunt Alice, who was our cook, went in the middle of the trial and said, "Ellie, Edward, your mama says, come home, your food's ready." So he had to suspend his case and go home and eat.
Tell us a little bit about your mother's dress shop.
Yeah. Now, and where was it?
Where the old Stateport Pilot used to be. There was the Stateport Pilot. There was the drugstore that my daddy, when we took early retirement, we were still in Cuba. My uncle called and said Dr. Watson had died, and he wanted my dad to buy the drugstore. And Dad said, okay, I'm getting ready to retire. So while we were still in Cuba, he bought Watson's Pharmacy. And right beside that, when we came back, was an empty building, and that was Arrington's. And then right beside that was another empty building, and that became Blama's, which was a dress shop that Mother ran. with women's clothes and children's clothes. And that's the 3 stores that they ran when they got back.
What street was that?
On Moore Street.
What was your dad doing in Cuba?
Yeah.
He was a lubricating engineer. He was a graduate of Georgia Tech. And he went all through South and Central America with sugarcane refineries, rum mills, teaching the natives how to take care of their equipment. He's a lubricating engineer. He was also an electrical engineer. He was also one of the funniest people I've ever known and had a tremendous, beautiful bass baritone voice and sang with the Atlanta Opera Company when he was young.
So your mother was a Cranmer?
Yes.
And your dad was Arrington?
And Arrington, yeah.
Where was your family home in Southport? Where was your family home?
There was a home right where the bank is, the drive-in right back here, a 2-story house. When we first came back, that's where we stayed for a while. We lived in that house and sold it and bought the Brunswick Inn. And that's where, and then in 1980, when my husband retired, he came up, we totally remodeled the Brunswick Inn from the attic down. Fascinating house, fascinating.
It has a beautiful front room, I guess you would call it, with the archways and
The
the
rotunda.
rotunda.
Yeah, and spiral staircase. And upstairs, there were, on the second floor, the bedrooms, there was a long, narrow room that connected the front bedroom with one of the back bedrooms that we used as a closet when I was growing up. And then when Barry remodeled it, that became a bathroom. But up above in the attic, we found huge copper tubs with spouts that went down. So evidently, that had been a bathing room, and they would heat the water in the tubs, and they would come down through these pipes in the ceiling to the tubs in that room.
Wow.
And there was a closet on the second floor, a closet that you opened the door, and it had steps in it that went up. But the roof was never over 4 feet tall, and we couldn't figure out. Barry thinks that originally the roof was higher, and that was access for the servants, because originally that was a hotel that covered the whole block. It went all the way down to the Conrad's house on the corner, and a fire and different things kept cutting off the backs of it, so that what remains was just virtually the lobby. My mother remembered when the main part of the house, the back part, went all the way across to the lot next to it, because when it was abandoned, they would go in as kids and skate in that big room. A lot of history here, a lot of history.
Ghosts there?
Yes,
Oh, yeah. Stuart knows about the ghosts.
I do.
Is that the one that's the violinist?
I beg pardon?
Is that a violinist? Yeah.
No, he had a harp.
Harp.
He was Antonio Casaletta came across from Italy with 2 brothers to be street musicians in Wilmington. And they found out that Wilmington had a law against it. And they didn't know what to do. And the captain of the steamboat Wilmington told them that he knew a place they could play, and that was the Brunswick Inn, had soirees every weekend. And so they came to Southport, and they would play for the guests every weekend. And Antonio, was the harpist. And one day he was in a sailboat out fishing. The storm came up, the boat capsized, and he was drowned. Oh. But they recovered his body. But anyway, that night, in the middle of the night, his harp started playing, and the guest woke up and looked over, and the strings had broken. And he was back.
Well, when you gonna write a book? You really have, right? You have written a book. You have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the name of your book?
Monkey Tales as well. My biggest one is Under the Coat, stories that Mother would tell us. And she had this black lamb's hair coat with little curls, and Pat and I would get under the coat, and she'd hug it around us and tell stories. Tales from Under the Coat. Yeah.
Is there a copy in the library?
I don't know.
Oh, she sold some of her.
I sold a bunch. It's being reprinted right now. I just
great.
gave our new preacher a copy. She wanted a copy, so.
Hey.
You may have to come back and tell your tales about living in Cuba and being friends with Castro.
Not really.
At least going to the swimming pool with him. Something with him.
Raul
Raul, yeah.
broke his nose.
Broke his nose.
She broke his nose. Tell about that.
Stuart, we just got you going, don't we?
He was a fat, chubby, nasty little boy. And he was in my swimming class at the Hotel Nacional. I went to a swimming class, and he picked on me. He was a nasty boy. And I jumped off the pool, and I jumped on him. And his nose hit the side of the pool. And I went home. And Mama thought we ought to apologize, and Daddy said, I don't think we need to go there. That was Raul.
He's in power now, isn't he? Is
Yeah.
he the one? Yeah.
So don't tell.
Don't you?
I don't know how long he'll hold a grudge.
But the bump on his nose, you thought.
Yeah, look at him, you'll see it.
Now we're all going to go home and Google it.
They were really,
Certainly a treasure. Oh, my
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just fortunate enough to have grandparents and parents that loved this little town, and we were free-range kids. It was such a great life. Of course, when I was around 10 and 11, I hated the fact that all the people told on kids when they were bad. I'd come home from playing in the yacht basin, and my mother would be standing on the porch. Someone had called her.
Are you named after someone in the family?
Kate Stewart.
Oh, okay.
Who was your aunt? Or
Great-great-aunt. Great-great-aunt, yeah. On my grandfather's side. Yeah. Never was fortunate enough to meet her, but one day I will.
Not too soon.
Well, you've done some nice portrayals of her over the year.
Oh,
Thank
And I
you.
do remember years ago you doing a very special play or reading along with a musician from Wilmington.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And I think I may still have the program from that or something, yeah.
That was a one-act play by a woman, I'm trying to think of her name, from Connecticut, I think. And she specialized in writing one-act plays about famous women. And she had written this play about Kate Stewart. Never had been to Southport or anything, just studied about famous women. And it was an interesting play, and what's his name, John Golden in Wilmington, the guitarist, he wrote a song to go in between the acts, and it was a beautiful play. Yeah, still got it.
It was one of my first Southport experiences. It's been a while back.
Yeah, we did that. I did that in several of the churches. And we did Amal and the Night Riders in 3 or 4 different times in different churches.
How did you guys stay cool in the hot summers?
It wasn't hot. We had the trade winds. No air conditioning in those days anywhere. But the houses were all designed. The apartment that we lived in Cuba had windows, ledges were about probably 2 feet deep, and no windows, shutters that you would open and close, and a big open porch, covered porch in the front. But there was I don't remember ever anybody complaining about being hot. It was just always a cool breeze from the trade winds.
I think air conditioning is what spoiled us.
Yes, it
We
did.
realized, well, maybe we were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those of us who were Southerners who were born and bred Southern fried under the Southern sky, we never paid that much attention to heat, did we?
That's right, and we were talking about that coming over here. I said, "Aren't you cold?" I mean, I was freezing this morning.
It was.
We had such a short spring, and she said, "No, I'm from the north." I said, "Well, I was raised in the south. This is cold this morning. This was cold." Thank you. Thanks, folks.
Any other questions for Stuart?
Thanks for letting us talk to you and talk.
So wonderful.
Anytime. Thank you. You know, an old actress will always be able to talk. We don't fade away without talking.